the wisdom of heaven's angels. The nature of the wisdom of heaven's angels is almost beyond comprehension, because it so transcends human wisdom that there are no means of comparison, and anything transcendent seems to be nothing at all. Still, there are a few overlooked means that can be used for description, means which, until they are recognized, seem like shadows in the mind and actually obscure the nature of the matter as it is in itself. Yet they are the kinds of things that can be known and can be understood once they are known, if only the mind takes delight in them. For since delight arises from love, it has a light with it, and for people who love matters of divine and heavenly wisdom, that light radiates from heaven and provides them with enlightenment. We may gather what angels' wisdom is like from the fact that they live in heaven's light, and in its essence, heaven's light is divine truth or divine wisdom. This light illuminates at one and the same time both their inner sight, which is mental, and their outer sight, the sight of their eyes. Angels also live in heaven's warmth, which in its essence is divine good or divine love, and from this comes their affection and longing for wisdom. Angels enjoy wisdom to the point that they might be called wisdoms, as we may gather from the fact that all the elements of their thoughts and affections flow according to the heavenly form, which form is the form of divine wisdom, and further that their more inward levels, which are open to wisdom, are framed according to this form. We may further infer the excellence of angels' wisdom from the fact that their speech is the speech of wisdom. It actually flows directly and freely from their thought, which in turn comes from their affection, so that their speech is their thought from affection in external form. Consequently, nothing draws them away from the divine inflow. There is none of that external matter that for us keeps intruding into our speech from thoughts about other things. It also contributes to this kind of angelic wisdom that everything they see with their eyes and perceive with their senses is in harmony with their wisdom. This is because all these things are correspondences, and therefore the objects of their senses are forms that portray elements proper to their wisdom. Further, angels' thoughts are not bounded and constrained by concepts drawn from space and time the way ours are. For space and time are properties of nature, and properties of nature distract the mind from spiritual things and deprive our intellectual sight of breadth. Angels' thoughts are not diverted to earthly and material concerns or interrupted by the cares and needs of life, so they are not distracted by such things from the joys of wisdom the way our thoughts are in this world. They are given everything by the Lord for free. They are clothed for free, fed for free, housed for free. And beyond this, they are provided with joys and pleasures in proportion to their acceptance of wisdom from the Lord. All this has been presented to show where angels derive this kind of wisdom. The reason angels can accept so much wisdom is that their deeper levels are open, and wisdom, like any perfection, increases as one moves toward the deeper levels and as they are opened. In every angel, there are 3 levels of life corresponding to the 3 heavens. People whose first level has been opened are in the first or most remote heaven. People whose second level has been opened are in the second or intermediate heaven. People whose third level has been opened are in the third or inmost heaven. The wisdom of angels in heaven is according to these levels. So the wisdom of angels of the third heaven vastly transcends the wisdom of angels of the intermediate heaven, and their wisdom in turn transcends that of angels of the farthest heaven. The reason for these differences is that the elements of the higher levels are detailed, and those of the lower are general, the general ones being inclusive of the details. The ratio of details to generalizations is on the order of thousands or 10,000s to 1. So this is the ratio between the wisdom of angels of a higher heaven and that of angels of a lower heaven. However, The wisdom of these latter angels similarly transcends our wisdom, for we are engrossed in our bodies and their sensory operations, and these physical sensory faculties are on the lowest level of all. We may gather how great angels' wisdom is from the fact that in heaven there is a communication that involves everyone. The intelligence and wisdom of one individual is shared with another. Heaven is where everyone shares everything of value. This is because the very nature of heavenly love is to want what is one's own to belong to another. So no one in heaven regards his or her good as authentically good unless it is someone else's as well. This is also the basis of heaven's happiness. Angels are led into it by the Lord, whose divine love has this same quality. I have also been granted knowledge by experience of this kind of communication in the heavens. Once some simple people were taken up into heaven, and, after they arrived also at an angelic wisdom. They understood things they could not grasp before, and said things they could not express in their former state. Words are not adequate to describe the quality of angels' wisdom. It can be suggested only by some generalizations. Angels can express in a single word what we cannot express in 1,000 words. Further, in a single angelic word, there are countless things that are beyond the capacity of human words to convey. In the details of angelic speech, there are actually treasures of wisdom in unbroken connection, utterly beyond the reach of human knowledge. Then, too, what angels cannot evoke with the words of their language, they fill in with the sound, which embodies their sensitivity to the proper arrangement of things. For as already noted, they express their affections through the sounds and the concepts derived from their affections through the words. This is why the things that people have heard in heaven are called ineffable. Angels can also state completely, in a few words, the details that are written in a whole volume, giving each word something that raises it toward a deeper wisdom. Their language by nature agrees with their affections, and every word agrees with their concepts. The words actually vary in infinite shadings, depending on the way they express, in sequence things that are simultaneous in their thought. The more inward angels can even tell a speaker's whole life from the tone of voice and a few words. From the way the sound is differentiated by concepts into words, they actually perceive the speaker's ruling love, in which, so to speak, the very details of life are engraved. We can see from all this what angels' wisdom is like. Relative to our wisdom, it is on the order of 10,000s to 1. It is like the ratio between the motor energies of the body, which are countless, to some act that results from them, which to our senses seems like a single event, or it is like the thousands of things we see through a perfect microscope compared to the one fuzzy thing we see with the naked eye. I should also like to illustrate the matter with one example. An angel, out of his wisdom, described the process of regeneration and presented mysteries about it in their proper sequence, amounting to 100. He filled out each single mystery with concepts containing even deeper mysteries, and did this from beginning to end, explaining how the spiritual person is conceived anew, is carried in the womb, so to speak, is born, matures, and is gradually perfected. He said that he could multiply in the number of mysteries into the thousands, and that the things he was talking about involved only the regeneration of the outer person. There were countless more about the regeneration of the inner person. This and other things of the same sort that I have heard from angels have shown me how much wisdom they have and how much ignorance we have by comparison. We have hardly any knowledge of what regeneration is, and no awareness of a single step when we are being regenerated. I need now to say something about the wisdom of the angels of the third or inmost heaven, and about how much it surpasses the wisdom of the first or outmost heaven. The wisdom of angels of the third or inmost heaven is beyond comprehension, even for angels of the first or outmost heaven. This is because the inner natures of angels of the third heaven are opened at the third level, while those of angels of the first heaven are open only at the first level. And all wisdom increases as you move toward the deeper levels, and is perfected as they are opened. Since the inner levels of angels of the third heaven are opened at the third level, they have divine truths virtually engraved on them, for inner matters at the third level are more in heaven's form than those at the second and first level. Heaven's form arises from divine truth, and therefore is in agreement with divine wisdom. This is why divine truths seem to these angels to be engraved or to be instinctive and innate. Because of this, as soon as they hear genuine divine truths, they immediately acknowledge and grasp them, and from then on virtually see them within themselves. Because this is characteristic of angels of this heaven, they never try to figure out divine truths, much less argue whether some particular truth is true or not. They do not know what it is to believe or have faith, but say, "What is faith? I perceive and see that this is so." They offer a comparison by way of illustration. It would be like someone seeing a house and various things in and around it, and telling someone with him that he ought to believe that they existed and that they were what they seemed to be. Or it would be like someone seeing a garden with trees and fruit in it, and telling someone that she should have faith that it was a garden and that those were trees and fruit when she could see them plainly with her own eyes. So these angels never call faith by name, and in fact have no concept of it. This is why they do not try to figure out divine truths, much less argue whether any particular truth is true or not. In contrast, angels of the first or outmost heaven do not have divine truths engraved on their inner natures in this way, because for them only the first level of life has been opened. So they do try to figure things out, and people who are calculating in this way see little more than the subject they are puzzling over. They do not go beyond that subject except to find support for their conclusions, and once they have decided, they say that these should be matters of faith and are to be believed. I have talked about this with angels who have told me that the difference between the wisdom of angels of the third heaven and the wisdom of angels of the first heaven is like the difference between something bright and something dark. Or again, they have compared the wisdom of angels of the third heaven to a palace full of everything useful, surrounded far and wide by parklands with all sorts of splendid things beyond. Since these angels enjoy truths of wisdom, they can enter the palace and see everything there. They can stroll anywhere in the parks and enjoy whatever they see. It is different for people who are trying to figure things out, though, and even more so for people who argue about them. These individuals do not see truths in the light of truth, but adopt them either from other people or from the literal meaning of the word, which they do not understand in depth. So they say that truths must be believed or that people must have faith in things that they then do not want anyone looking into very deeply. The angels kept saying that these people could not get to the first threshold of the palace, much less enter it and stroll around in its parks, because they are stuck at the first step. It is different for people who are engaged in actual truths. Nothing keeps them from moving ahead without limit. For once truths have been seen, they lead on wherever they are headed, even into spacious meadows, because every truth has an infinite outreach and is united to many, many others. They also said that the wisdom of angels of the inmost heaven consists primarily of their seeing divine and heavenly things in individual objects and wonders in series of objects. For everything that appears to their eyes has a correspondence. When they see palaces and gardens, for instance, their insight does not dwell on the things in front of their eyes, but sees the deeper things they stem from, the things, that is, to which they correspond. This goes on with constant variety in keeping with the appearance of the objects. So at any given time, there are countless things in a pattern and a connectedness so delightful to their minds that they seem to be transported. Everything that is visible in the heavens corresponds to something divine that is from the Lord in angels. The reason angels of the third heaven are like this is that they are centered in love for the Lord, and that love opens the deeper levels of the mind to the third level, and is open to and retentive of all wisdom. It should also be known that angels of the inmost heaven are constantly being even more perfected in wisdom, and that this too happens differently than for angels of the outmost heaven. Angels of the inmost heaven do not store up divine truths in their memory or translate them into information. Rather, as soon as they hear them, they grasp them and apply them to their lives. This is why divine truths for them are virtually engraved, because anything that is committed to life is to that extent internalized. It is different, though, for angels of the outmost heaven. They first assign divine truths to their memory and store them in the form of information. Then they retrieve them and use them to perfect their understanding, and without any deeper grasp of their truth, they intend them and commit them to life. Consequently, things are relatively cloudy for them. It is worth noting that angels of the third heaven are perfected in wisdom through hearing rather than through seeing. What they hear through preaching does not go into their memory, but directly into their perception and intention, and becomes a matter of their life. What they see with their eyes, though, does go into their memory, and they think and talk about it. This has enabled me to see that the path of hearing is the path of wisdom for them. This too is because of correspondence, since the ear corresponds to obedience, and obedience has to do with the way we live, while the eye corresponds to intelligence, and intelligence is a matter of doctrine. The state of these angels is described in many places in the Word. For instance, in Jeremiah, "I will put my law in their midst, and I will write it on their heart. No longer will people teach their friends or their family, saying, 'Know Jehovah,' for all the people there are will know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them." Jeremiah 31, 33 to 34. And in Matthew, "Let your conversation be, yes, yes, no, no, for anything beyond this comes from evil." Matthew 5, 37. The reason anything beyond this comes from evil is that it is not from the Lord. For the truths that are resident within angels of the third heaven are from the Lord because they are centered in a love for Him. Love for the Lord in that heaven is intending and doing divine truth, for divine truth is the Lord in heaven. There is still another reason, beyond the ones already given, why angels can accept so much wisdom. A reason that in heaven is actually the primary one. It is that they are free of any selfishness, for to the extent that people are free of selfishness, they can be wise in divine matters. Selfishness is what closes off our deeper natures from the Lord and heaven, and opens our outer natures and turns them toward ourselves. So all people in whom that selfish love predominates are in the depths of darkness, as far as heavenly realities are concerned, no matter how much light they may enjoy in regard to worldly matters. In contrast, since angels are free of that love, they enjoy the light of wisdom, the heavenly loves in which they are centered. Love for the Lord and love for their neighbor open the deeper levels because these loves come from the Lord, and the Lord Himself is within them. These loves constitute heaven in general, and form heaven in individuals in particular. Since heavenly loves open our deeper levels toward the Lord, all the angels turn their faces toward the Lord. In the spiritual world, love is what turns the deeper levels of every individual toward itself, and what turns the deeper levels turns the face, since the face there acts in unison with the deeper levels, and is actually their outward form. Further, because love does turn the deeper levels and the face toward itself, it also unites itself to them, since love is spiritual union. Therefore, it also shares what it has with them. It is from this turning and the consequent union and sharing that angels get their wisdom. All union in the spiritual world takes place according to the way people are facing. Angels are constantly being perfected in wisdom, but still they cannot to eternity be so perfected that there is any ratio between their wisdom and the Lord's divine wisdom. For the Lord's divine wisdom is infinite and the angels is finite, and there is no ratio between the infinite and the finite. Since wisdom perfects angels and makes their life, and since heaven with its blessings flows into individuals according to their wisdom, all the people there long for it and seek it, much the way a hungry person seeks food. In fact, information, intelligence, and wisdom are spiritual nourishment, the way food is natural nourishment. They correspond to each other. The angels in any given heaven, even the angels in any given community, do not enjoy the same wisdom, but differ. Those in the center have the most wisdom, while those who have less are around them, all the way to the borders. The decrease of wisdom according to the distance from the center is like the decrease in light as it tends toward darkness. Further, the light for them is on a consistent level, since heaven's light is divine wisdom, and each individual is in light in proportion to his or her acceptance of it.